Hello and welcome to the 23rd Port Townsend Film Festival. We are recording this about a month ahead of the festival, so any references we make to next month, we're going to see our guests at the festival. Give us a little leeway for that. My name is Christy Spencer. I am the program manager at Port Townsend Film Festival, and I am really excited to have Vivian Kerr, who is the director, the writer, and the lead actor in the feature film Scrap. I would love to jump into, I learned, I didn't know this before today, that Scrap actually started many years ago as a short. Tell us a little bit about the adventure of bringing a short to a feature.
It definitely took a lot longer than I thought. I first sort of got the idea back in late 2016. Sorry, there's like construction happening. Hopefully it's not too loud. Los Angeles had really been hit with, a huge homeless crisis that almost seemed to have come out of nowhere. And then obviously it got worse and worse. And then the pandemic, it got even worse. And so I had this idea of sort of writing something about a woman who is laid off and living in her car and kind of dealing with the shame of that and hiding that from her family members while trying to provide for her daughter. And I just had written some scenes and I took it to a writer's night here in Los Angeles. And a very good friend of mine, who's a producer named Sapna Gandhi, was sort of co-running that writer's night. And she really encouraged me with it. Like, she really was like, there's something about this piece that's really great. Like, the way that she felt like, I was coming at it from a little bit of a different angle. Like, a lot of stories of people who are living that way the stories are more about, like the foster care system or drug addiction, or, there's just like a whole other level of like complication to it. And I kind of wanted to tell a story about a woman who was sort of solidly middle class and had just kind of really abruptly found herself in that environment, was trying to kind of keep appearances. So anyway, and then I kind of kept writing it. And then I just put it in a drawer and I got busy for a couple years. But my producer friend, Sapna, kept asking me about it. Like, every time we would have coffee, every time we would see each other, she's like, what's going on with that script? Are you going to make that script? And at some point, I think it had ballooned to like 25 pages. And she just she really believed in it. And finally she said, if you want to make that as a short, just those like 20 pages, 25 pages, I'll produce it with you. Like, we can do this, we can make this happen. So it wasn't until 2018 where we made it as a short. So she produced it with me. And Anthony Rapp, who's in the feature, who plays my brother in the feature, he was also in the short, which is how we met. And working with him, I loved our brother-sister dynamic on screen. I loved working with him. And then I did a lot of film festivals in 2019 with the short, and then seeing the audiences really respond to it and having so many people come up to me and share really vulnerable stories about, troubling times in their own lives when they had lost their homes and, or they were just dealing with a lot of shame and hiding things from their family members. I felt more compelled than ever to expand it into a feature. So then I wrote the script, and then it took 2 years to get that made. So it's just a long process. I mean, I think I wasn't sure I wanted to do it as a feature. And then once I realized I did, it took a long time to get the financing. It was a very long answer.
The life of an independent film, right?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. But I think we were hugely helped out by the fact that we had a short that had done festivals. So when we were, fundraising for it, like, it was such a good proof of concept for us to say, we had this short that we did, audiences really responded to it, festival programmers responded to it. I can't remember. I think we got into like 2 dozen festivals. So I think that was really helpful for us. I don't really know what we would have done if we hadn't had that as a proof of concept.
Right. Wow. So tell me about, so you wear many, many hats in this particular project, having written the script, directing it, acting in it. And I know each of those roles takes a different level of focus or a focus in a different direction. So can you talk about those pivotal moments or those I don't know, moving back and forth between those roles, and what effect does that have on the outcome or to you?
Yeah, I think it was obviously my first feature. So it's like I was learning how to direct a feature at the same time that I was learning to do all those roles simultaneously. So it was just a very big learning curve for me. But I got really lucky that I, worked with people on it who were really experienced. The actors, so Anthony Rapp, who plays my brother, Lana Parrilla, who plays my sister-in-law, they're actors who've had very long, incredible careers. And so the fact that they trusted me, and believed in me and were willing to sort of play with me, take me seriously as an actress and also take direction from me, like that gave me a huge amount of confidence. And I also just learned that, there was sort of an efficiency to it I really enjoyed. Like, because I wrote the script, if there was ever a line of dialogue on set that wasn't quite working that day, rather than having to like call the writer, go find the writer, and then negotiate with the writer, like I could on my feet sort of rewrite things and suggest things, or if we were losing a location, or there was a scene in the script. There's a one scene in the script actually that we just couldn't quite fit into our shoot schedule, where my character was going to go to a library. We couldn't really get the location. We couldn't really fit it into, the puzzle of our shoot because we had so many locations all over Los Angeles. And then finally it kind of got to a point where I was towards the end of the shoot where I was like, you know what? We don't need that scene. Like, we don't need it. It's not necessary, and I'm going to cut it. And so it was like I didn't have to consult with anyone about that, which was nice. So and then the acting I thought was just really fun because I had been a professional actor for over 15 years. So I felt like I knew how to take care of myself as an actor. So for me, the big learning curve was directing and believing in myself that I could do that.
Well, you managed it all with grace from the audience perspective. So
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about how Anthony came to the project. So I don't know why, but I just had an assumption that you met along the way somehow, but you mentioned just a little bit ago that he came to the project when it was a short film.
Yeah, so the short film, which I actually didn't direct. So we had hired a director to come in and do it. It was just a 3-day shoot. And obviously it was essentially about the first 20 minutes of the feature with a little bit of changes. And so it just kind of set up my character situation, sort of introduced the relationship between the brother and sister, and then kind of ended a little bit on a cliffhanger. And then the feature goes on to kind of develop that more. But we needed someone to play my brother. It had to be a really good actor, had to be someone who could believably look like my brother. And we offered it to him. We, just sent an offer to his representation, and he luckily liked the script. I think it worked out with his schedule where he's based in New York, but we were shooting in LA, and he was going to be in California anyway, I think, to accept an award for something. So it worked nicely in his schedule. And I think also I think we had mentioned that it was going to be a proof of concept, that there would likely be a feature. And I think he could tell, I'd already kind of planned in writing the short where it was going to go. So I think he could tell that there was something more substantive there than what you get a lot of times with most shorts. So yeah, I'm so grateful. A lot of actors, even if it's a proof of concept for a feature, there are a lot of actors who won't read a short or won't even look at a short. So we got really lucky that he not only read it, but was willing to do it. And then essentially, like, I'm trying to think when he got the feature script. So we shot it in 2018. I think it was like 2 years later, so he came to a festival in 2019 in the Beverly Hills Film Festival here. And we did the short, like to screen the short. But then I think at that point, I don't even think the feature script was ready. So I think it was something he had said recently in an interview. It was something like 2 years later, he just like got the feature script from his agent, and he was like, oh, like this is actually happening. Because a lot of these things, they disappear. You do a short and everyone's excited and talks about like, oh, we're going to turn this into a feature. And, you get jaded after a while. You're like, yeah, okay, when it happens, I'll believe it,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So talk about, while we're talking about Anthony and his role as Ben opposite your role, talk about a little bit about the brother-sister dynamic. One of the things that really stood out to me and when I watched the film was this sort of theme through all the characters, but especially the brother and sister, is this theme of frustration. You know, they're trying, they have goals in life and they're trying to get to that place, but either making decisions wrong or there's other hurdles that they have to come up against, in addition to just this brother sister dynamic. And it's always interesting to me to see new actors like so good at their craft being able to build that dynamic. And not sure if you have siblings, but I know this dynamic. I know this dynamic very well.
Yeah, I do. So I have one older sister who's actually also an actor and a director and a writer. Her name's Vivian Kerr. And although the relationship between Anthony and my characters in the film is like nothing to do with my sister, and my sister and I get along really, really well. But I love, but because my sister and I are so close, I have always been drawn to films about siblings. I love The Savages. I love You Can Count on Me. The recent film, The Skeleton Twins, with Bill Hader and Kristen Wiig, like those, I love those movies. I think sibling relationships on screen are really special and kind of weirdly rare, considering how important those relationships are in our lives. This is the only other person, especially if there's only two. It's like there's only one other person in the world who will understand what it was like to grow up in the house you grew up in, and who will understand like the dynamic of that and how it shaped you. And no one else will ever understand that, no matter how much you sort of explain it. So yeah, and I think sort of the themes of the film in terms of both their frustrations. I think that when I was writing it, I had been acting in Los Angeles for a really long time, and I'd experienced sort of my own career frustrations. I felt like the work that I was being booking and the like roles that I was being called on to do were using a very small amount of my creative ability and interest. And I wanted to sort of maybe write something that was a little more personal to me. So even though I don't have a brother, I do think that the frustration the characters are all experiencing, whether it's, the sister-in-law Stacy's, going through IVF, and, Ben kind of trying to figure out his career, what kind of writer he's going to be when he's getting paid to do work that doesn't interest him, but wants to do other kinds of work. I really strongly related to that. And then Beth as well, like feeling, I knew what it was like to be in Los Angeles and feel like everything was against you, having those days where you're like, you get a parking ticket and then like your audition doesn't go well and someone's mean to you and then someone breaks up with you. And then, it's like things are just like compiling and you just feel like you can't do anything right. I had so many days like that, in my 20s and early 30s. So there was something I think satisfying about putting that on screen. I remember seeing La La Land and thinking like, I obviously I enjoyed it. I thought it was visually so stunning and the music was wonderful, but I just remember thinking like, I don't know that Los Angeles. Like I have no idea what that Los Angeles is. I've never experienced it, so I wanted to make something that was it felt a little more true to my experience.
Thank you for setting up the segue here for this next question.
I'm talking so much, so just cut me off.
No, not at all. I love it. No, so you mentioned La La Land and visually stunning, as I think the words that you chose. And I was struck by your film, by the vibrancy of the colors. Can you talk a little bit about, landing on that decision? I've heard a couple other interviews that you've given about this topic, but it struck me. So it's interesting that that other people picked up on the same thing. Yeah. So tell us about color choices.
Yeah, it was like a really important discussion that I had with our cinematographer from the beginning. Like it's funny, even when I was interviewing cinematographers and kind of trying to like land on what exactly would be the visual language of this film, because of the subject matter, because it dealt with a woman who was sleeping in her car, at least in the beginning of the movie. I was like, I can spoil it. People have hopefully seen the movie by now. Spoiler alert, that she's not in her car the whole movie. But in the beginning, because of that circumstance, a lot of people would sort of pitch me on making it very desaturated, grainy, urban, kind of emphasizing that. And I was like, no, absolutely not. Like, it has to be commercial. It has to look glossy. It has to be sharp. That was just incredibly important to me, because the whole sort of journey that the character goes on is letting go of a delusion, letting go of an idea of what Los Angeles would be. It's like she's almost drunk the Kool-Aid. She's grown up on, Woody Allen sort of city on a hill, the magical city of your dreams. It's almost like she's dreaming of La La Land, right? But she doesn't live there. She lives in actual Los Angeles of like strip malls and homeless encampments and parking tickets and, all of that. And she's not willing to accept her reality. And until she deals with what's actually in front of her and accepts personal responsibility, she can't move forward. She can't get out of her circumstance. So it was fun, especially in the beginning, like the first third of the film, to like really overly saturate everything. And we kind of also used the Billie Holiday music in the same way. It's like kind of, again, playfully, I don't know, I guess just using that to just sort of, emphasize like she has this dream of sort of the golden age of Hollywood, right? 1930s, 1940s, like everything's going to be magical and beautiful. And it's causing her to put herself and keep herself in a very dangerous situation, which is what is the reality of a woman sleeping in her car by herself.
Certainly. Oh, thank you for that. I loved all that saturation of color, and yeah, it was so striking to me in opposition of the storyline. So yeah, I appreciated the thought that went into that. So that's pretty great. I want to know what's up next for you. I did hear you maybe have shot your second feature.
Yeah, I shot my second feature in December of this last year. So we're in post-production on it right now. So that film is called Seance. It could not be more different. It is it's a period piece. It takes place in the 1890s. It's a contained psychological thriller about well, I don't know how much I guess about adultery. It's sort of a throwback to these 1960s thrillers, sort of like it's very like Henry James, Turn of the Screw, The Innocents, the original Haunting. That's the vibe. So it's very different tonally, but really fun. Really, I'm having a great time kind of working on post with it.
Fabulous.
Yeah. And so hopefully that'll premiere next year in 2024.
Excellent. And then what's coming down the pipes for you, looking a little further ahead?
Well, so we've got, Scrap obviously is still going to be doing festivals the rest of this year, probably until early next year. Next year, Seance will start its cycle, which will probably take it through the end of 2025, which is also kind of something amazing that you learn when you start directing features. Like, you realize you're going to be on this journey with these films, for like 3 or 4 years, which is kind of incredible to sort of grow with the film. And that's not something I really anticipated. So it'll be, really shepherding these 2 films along. And then I'm also starting my own production company called Rue d'Anjou. So I hope to do some short films sort of in between all of these other commitments. And then I'm also writing another feature right now.
Vivian, thank you so much for joining me. Do you have any last words that you want to leave with our audience?
No, thank you so much for, screening Scrap at Port Townsend. I'm excited to go. I've never been. I've only ever been to Seattle once. So, it looks beautiful. I'm like, oh, the water. We don't have a lot of water here. So, I'm thrilled to go and be able to screen it twice. That's really a privilege. So thank you very much for programming the film.
Absolutely. All right. Enjoy, and we'll see you at the movies.